Hello and welcome to the next installment of the Substack Live series, Starting from Zero. And can we just take a moment, because today I've got all of the energy like fizzing around me, because I have been waiting to have this time with you, Sinem, from the very moment that I noticed you on YouTube. And I think if anybody that's watching has looked up how to do Substack on YouTube, Sinem will be at the top of your list. And I think I've been girl crushing over you for the past couple of months of everything that you're creating on Substack with Yari and Philip as well. And so for anybody that hasn't met you yet, has probably been living under a rock this whole time, but I wanted to just sort of introduce you and just say what an incredible honor it is and privilege to have you here today sharing the insights, because what you've built with Write, Build, Scale, there's like 2,000 paid members, there's over 54,000 subscribers, and that is just mind-blowing on what's possible in a relatively short space of time. So Sinem, welcome. Can you please, for anybody that's not met you yet, just give us a little introduction to your background and what you're up to now?
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. It's an absolute pleasure. I've actually been loving and enjoying watching your process and everything you build as well. So the pleasure is all mine.
Oh.
Yeah, as a quick intro, I think the most relevant thing to mention for me is Write, Build, Scale on Substack has been founded pretty much 2 years ago. So we've built the Substack audience within the past 2 years. But, and I think that's the perfect basically addition to it based on the conversation you have prepared for today.
Yeah.
I've been writing since 2018. So starting on Substack, I didn't necessarily start from zero. And I think that's really important to keep in mind when you are comparing yourself, when you are looking at other people's journeys. I've started writing online basically as a side hustle or as something to just explore while I was still in my business studies. I had a full-time internship. I had just started my first business where we were doing in-person workshops. And I was just turning those workshops into written articles. I was doing it on Medium back then. One thing led to another, and here we are on Substack, basically teaching, educating on how to grow your audience, how to make money, sharing what you know and sharing what you love.
Yeah, but I also think that's really important. So thank you for sharing that, because even though it might not be Substack, but you did it in another area and you still experimented, and it's still the same process that you've experienced, but just on a different platform that you're also able to apply here. And it's the same for myself. You know, back in the UK, I did a community, and we built a community of over 8,000 women that were like starting out in business or starting over in business. But that was that platform. We were writing for them. We were doing lives like this. We were doing workshops. But here it's like a whole new blank page. And I think the topic of the conversation is starting from zero, but you're not. It's really starting from what you want to build going forward. I think that's a really good outlet to have, because we've always got something and we've always got someone that we can invite into this new space, so it doesn't need to feel so overwhelming. But I'd love to know, because I'm sure you've seen thousands of people starting from zero, what have you seen that some of the mistakes people make that actually you just wish that you could tap them on the shoulder and say, listen, why don't you just try this instead? What do you see commonly?
Let me take you a few steps back, actually, to the very beginning of my journey. When I started publishing on Medium, I had no writing experience. I didn't have any experience in content marketing or publishing, in marketing for real. Like I've been studying business administration, but I didn't work in marketing, so I didn't know any of that. So when I started writing, I was just sharing what I was curious about. I was learning, and then I was sharing it. Some of the articles were my own experiments. Some of it was really purely, this is what I wish I had known sooner. It was summaries of books I was reading, what I was teaching in my workshops, the feedback I was receiving from our attendees. And I did that for almost 2 years without any feedback loops. And there are a few different points I have on the story. The first one is I started publishing on Medium because I was blown away by the fact that sharing knowledge or sharing something you create was so easy. Of course, I knew I could have done that on Instagram as well, or on Facebook or YouTube. But for me, Instagram was always a personal channel, so that was never really an option. YouTube is way too much when you're getting started. Anything else, building my own website or something like that, was not an option because I had no idea how to do that. And I love the idea that you can just write an article and publish it. Also, basically what we do on Substack, right? So the simplicity was my main driver. And I think a lot of people take that for granted now. So on one of the mistakes, like, don't take it for granted, because if you look back like 10, 15 years ago, it was not easy to just publish content and reach people. It was nearly impossible to do that if you didn't have the skills to build a website and to do really crazy things in the tech back end, which is not necessary right now. The other thing is, go ahead.
No, so sorry, interrupt you.
The other thing is, when I published an article and it got 20 views, I was blown away. I was thinking to myself, 20 people actually saw that. 20 random people from somewhere in the world saw that. And if it got one comment, I took that very personal. I was like, someone read something I had written, which is pretty crazy. And when I started making money through my writing, I remember going to my mom the first time I actually received a payout, and I was blown away. I think the first one was $7 or something. It was crazy to me that I did something on the internet and I got paid for it. It didn't matter whether it was $1, $100, or $1,000. And I think, and that's basically the bottom line, that one of the mistakes we often see is a sort of entitlement that when you create something, you deserve attention and you deserve people to pay attention, which isn't true, because you could be writing something phenomenal, but you still have to earn that attention. It's not in direct correlation with the quality of your work or with how much effort you've put into that piece of content. And I think this applies to many other professions as well. We're just not aware of it when we start creating. And when you have that sort of entitlement, you focus on the wrong things. And that leads you down rabbit holes that are not necessarily productive or useful. And we can, continue talking a lot about more specifics, but I wanted to give that background because I think it's not often talked about. And I hope that it's useful in a new way for a few of the listeners.
It is so helpful because it's like you've just picked out of my brain the reason why I love Substack so much. Because when somebody first said, oh, you should be on Substack, I was just presuming it was this email marketing platform. And I'm like, I can't do this again. And then when you dive deeper and you realize it's like, it's everything in one place for a multimedia platform. That was the first learning of it, of like just knowing this has now taken all of these different platforms. Like you're going here for an email, you're going here to deliver an online course, you're going here to do your social media. Well, all in one place. I was like, oh my goodness, like finally something. But then the key is exactly what you've just said. You can come here and you can be given all of the resources, everything that you need in one big basket, and it gets handed to you. And it's actually what you do with that basket. And I think that was why I came into your world, because I knew the power of what this was, but I wanted to, for once in my life, to stay consistency with what that possibility could be. And the key of all of that was not the entitlement of like, oh, I've got a post out there, it's got to have 100 likes. This was like, no, build the foundations, learn what this structure is and what it can be for you personally, so that it can be sustainable and you can build it properly and you can stay consistent. And I don't mind having full confession and transparency here, but this is the only platform that since April I have stayed consistent every single day. Before now, I've gone down rabbit holes, I've gone down lovely, bright, shiny object syndrome, but actually because of the structure that it offers, and you can see that vision along with your support over in the Substack Accelerator, it keeps us on track. And it's like, and it's worked. It's really, really worked. A OneNote a day, or all of those elements around it. And I think that's the key, is like, and also the other one that I've noticed is that social media, you post something and you expect those likes, shares, comments, and everything, instant gratification. Whereas actually what I found with Substack on being for these couple of months is that posts that I posted back in April are still getting engagements, and we're getting more comments now, getting restacked. And so it's become this library and this home of it constantly being there. And I think we often forget that as well, of like, it's not the social media, it's not the instant gratification, it's the content that comes with it. And I think that, yeah, have you got any insight on that, what you find with people?
Yeah, a lot of people are used to social media and exactly what you described, also in terms of follower numbers, like numbers. And also when I talk to other business owners, it's often a different type of measurement, because I've never created on traditional social media platforms like Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, right? So when you talk about likes, for example, or how much engagement a post gets, people who are creating on Instagram or LinkedIn, they are used to very different numbers. But 100 likes on Substack is not the same as 100 likes on LinkedIn. You don't get tens of thousands of likes or comments on Substack. It's not very common, but that's not the point. I can show you a lot of examples of creators who have over 100,000 followers on social networks who are barely making a relevant income, simply because the patterns have shifted and the numbers just mean something different. And I like to actually compare it more to YouTube. And I'm still a YouTube newbie myself, but it's funny, on YouTube, a lot of my videos that pick up months after I create them. It's really different. And when you compare that to Instagram, for example, where a post has a very short shelf life, or a LinkedIn post will not go viral a month after it has been published, or that just doesn't happen. And with content on YouTube, that does happen. With content on Substack, it has a longer shelf life, because you're not just posting into a feed, but you're actually building your library, your publication, which for anyone watching, if you haven't checked out Sarah's publication yet, definitely go do that, because it's basically a beautiful version of what a publication can look like, right? If you're building your library and you actually pay attention to what is the experience people have when they see my publication, instead of just posting for the sake of filling the feed and showing up in the feed. And we do both on Substack, right? We do show up on notes as often as we can to stay on top of mind. But eventually, the real value happens on the publication. And you don't need thousands of likes on a post for your publication to be profitable and to pay your bills and to help you build a thriving large business that allows you to do what you love.
That's amazing. And it actually leads really nicely into the next conversation that I'd love to have with you, because the big topic right now is becoming a bestseller on Substack. And so there's, that everybody wants it. And again, an instant thing, how can I become a bestseller right now? And so, and that's great, but and that's what we learn behind the scenes of like, how can you offer value? But I'd love to know from you, from lots of different publications that you see, like what really makes an incredible bestseller, that not be beyond the badge really as well.
Yeah, let's zoom out for 1 second and talk about why it matters and why it sounds like a bad thing to chase the bestseller badge when you say it that way, but it might make sense for a lot of creators, because when you scroll through the feed, scroll through the live chat that we have here on this live stream, the bestseller badge just shows that you've built something significant, that people trust you, at least 100 people. They trust you enough to pay you. That's a really strong signal. Even if they just pay you $1 or even less for your publication, you've managed to build trust and to build something that people want to pay for. And that's something that you shouldn't take lightly. That's big, because whether you sell something for $1, for $10, or $100 is not that much of, there's not that much of a difference. A lot of creators in their early days, they are intimidated by the idea of marketing and selling their content or their products and services. And I couldn't believe that myself as a newer creator who hated the idea of selling and self-promotion. But it's really true. Like, when you create something that you want to sell, whether the price tag is $1, 10, $100 is not that much of a difference. The skills that you need to learn are the same. The process, the systems are the same. It's more about the confidence and how you show up. And it does make sense to aim for the bestseller badge if you wanted to take Substack seriously, because you're instantly telling people, hey, I'm in here for the long run. I'm taking this seriously, and you should pay close attention, right? If I had a bestseller here in the live chat, for example, and they would drop a comment, we would instantly, it would catch our attention, because it's different. The badge, you don't fake it. Yeah. And sorry, to circle back, what was your main question?
I was saying about the what it takes to really
what it takes.
For somebody to actually pay to be a subscriber, what it takes to become this bestseller.
The overarching theme is you need to understand your audience. Yeah. You need to understand who you are writing for and what you can do for them. At Write Build Scale, everything we do and everything we teach is aimed to serve coaches, creators, founders, people who share knowledge. So if you are writing memoirs, if you're writing personal essays, our content might not be directly applicable to your situation, right? So a lot of what I say is really for the people who share knowledge. And if you share knowledge, obviously you have an easier time to define what the value is that you bring to the table, because usually you are guiding someone through a transformation. You want to help someone do something, or you want to help them solve a problem or achieve a better result in some way, shape, or form. And when you have that clarity from early on in your publication, it becomes easy to build assets behind the paywall that people really want to get access to. And the main mistake people make is thinking that you're just building a paid newsletter, but nobody wants to pay for a newsletter, right? We all get way too many emails. We all drown in emails and newsletters. So we don't want to subscribe to more and pay for it. We want to get access to something that we believe will actually be useful and that will move us forward. Again, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe you're teaching a language, maybe you're teaching how to grow your own vegetables, how to put your toddler to sleep. That doesn't matter. You know, the topic itself is not the point. The point is that you know who is the other person on the other end of the screen. Who is that person reading my content, and how can I actually help them make a difference or make a change in their lives? And when you know that, you can build assets that truly help these people. And I think another major mistake people make is they're trying to basically stick to a schedule that is not set in stone. For example, oftentimes people try to do one free post a week, one paid post per week, because that's kind of what's grown to be the standard on Substack. Yeah. But if you are putting hours and hours of time into your paid content, and it's not feasible to do that, maybe you just have, one paid piece of content every 2 weeks. Maybe it's one mega thing per month. These like things like the schedule and those, those are the questions people ask, like how often should I post? At what time should I post? These are the things that usually don't make the biggest difference. The biggest difference comes from you knowing what you stand for and who you can help, so that everything else basically revolves around those answers.
And I think that at the very beginning, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start with notes, because I just wanted to get to grips with putting that out there. Who was being attracted to those notes, and then what they were looking for in writing. But also, like you say, I've actually focused on interviews like this as my content, because what I then do after the live is do an article around this, so it can still be a long form article. But I think that with so much talk about AI out there, nobody can take our conversation right here, right now, out and say that it's AI, because the article underneath it is going to go a full description. And I think what you're saying is, like, really find a way that works for you. Like, don't actually wait for a schedule, or it's got to be at 6 a.m., 12 a.m., 2 p.m. Full confession, I haven't done any of that, because it's had to feel like I have to be in it to really feel it, and to really sort of like be part of it without rushing what that process is. And that's why I've not gone all in with the paid tiers instantly, because I want to build what people need rather than build what I think people want. And so that's sort of been a slower process for me personally, but it feels more sustainable, because previously on things I've thought I've created something that people want, and there's been crickets, and then I've been burnt out because I've put so much effort into it. Whereas now, here, like Substack, you can listen, you can interact, you can comment, you can message, you can engage, you can really listen to what people want and need. And I think, I mean, I'm not at bestseller status yet, but I know that it's building towards something really trusted and authentic from listening and offering what people need instead of spamming their inbox. And I think that's just been a lesson in a very early stage. But I think if you had all of those numbers taken away from you right now, and you were starting from zero without any other audience or anything, what would that look like for you? How would you do it?
I would go all in on a topic that I'm genuinely curious about, and that I know I can talk about for years and years. Because the other mistake people often make is basically looking for a popular topic or a profitable topic, right? And I think if you genuinely love what you talk about, you will always find fresh angles. You will always find the excitement to show up, as long as you don't put yourself into a box and don't limit yourself. I would, however, look for best practices in my space as early as possible as well, because that's the one mistake I made, and that's why I spent 2 years publishing a lot of long form content without moving forward really quickly, because I was only focused on the creation side. Because everything I was hearing is be consistent, show up, publish more. And yes, that's true, but that's only one side of the coin. And the other side is that you need to review if what you're doing is actually correct. Because you can write 100 posts, 1,000 notes, but if they are not reaching anyone, then you could be spending that time doing things differently and achieving different results, right? And for me, it just took a long time to get to that conclusion, again, because I was doing it on the side. I had a lot of other responsibilities. It was not my main focus. But the moment I realized, wait, what are all these other people doing that are actually making a whole lot of more money, but also have a much bigger impact because they are reaching more people through their content? I obsessed over basically modeling of excellence, is what we call it, right? Find out what works for others and how you can apply it in your own domain. And I was still in that full-time internship back then, and I was exploiting my copier card as an intern. I was maxing out. I was literally printing out articles that were going viral. I had my yellow marker, and I was obsessing over structure, how introductions, how are they structuring their hooks, how are they starting their articles. And that's the fine balance there that's really hard to hit when you're really passionate, you want to grow an audience, but you have a limited amount of time. You need those feedback loops. You need to create, but you also need to be really critical about what you're creating, so that you don't spend a year writing 100 posts or 50 posts that don't reach a lot of people. And maybe it's not about the numbers, right? Maybe it's not about getting thousands of subscribers within a year, but even if you are not obsessing over numbers, it's a shame when you have a message, a voice, a story, you're putting in all the effort, but it's only reaching a handful of people instead of serving a lot more people who could benefit from your work. So this balance of being consistent, sticking to your routines, but also being relentless and either feedbacking yourself and learning, or getting that feedback from someone else and shortcutting that process. I think that's essentially the whole pattern that you need to repeat in your, in my opinion, first year. And there was one more thing I wanted to say on that. I forgot. It will come to me later, and I
Well, the
will plug
one
it
thing,
in.
well, as you were talking about that, one of something that I read a week ago or so, and it stopped me, and I was like, it literally took my breath away a little bit, because they said visibility is currency, and I was like, oh, that's it, that is it, because like all of the work that I've done for the, I'm in business for 20 years next year. And even before that, I was working since the age of 15. I went into full-time employment, and I've got the knowledge, I've got the wisdom, I've got the expertise. But the thing that happens is that sometimes I lack in the confidence and I go and hide. And then what happens is, it was easy to hide. So I would do the writing, I would publish a magazine, I would do all of these things, but then not show up and say, hi, this is me, this is what we're doing, this is what we're creating, and this is what it goes back to. So it's exactly what you're saying. You can obsess over the structure, you can get all of those things, but actually, if you are not showing up consistently, or you're not having the confidence to put your work out there, or have the confidence to message people that you would love to partner with collaborate with, or even find your community. And thankfully, I find my community in you and the Substack accelerator that we have, because we have a whole community there that we can have accountability sessions. I've got my accountability partner who you met yesterday with Ellen, that we have our calls with you, and then we get on a call afterwards to say, right, what are we doing, what are we putting out there, how can we show up, how can we do this? And I think that's been the big difference, because for such a long time, I have been that DIYer that has gone on YouTube and thought, I can piece all of these pieces of the puzzle together myself, and I'll fumble along and I'll do it on my own. The game changer, what I feel is what is different now is having the support, is having the resources, is having the people that you can call upon to give you like an honest reflection. I mean, I've been in that group and put my heart on the line and said, hey guys, can you audit my page? Can you let me know what you think of this? And I buckled myself in, ready for the constructive feedback. And it was constructive feedback. It's not just to blow smoke to make you feel good. It's actually constructive to push you forward. And I think that's then what gives you the confidence to show up and just be your true self, of not having scripted sessions, just putting it out there. But I think the support has been a really, really big game changer for me personally. So I just want to say thank you to you, to Philip, and to Jari for that, because I just think that you've been like my support unit behind, like pushing forward of like, yeah, this is it, go for it. And so I'd love you to give an insight to what you do behind the scenes with people, and how somebody can get started with everything that you share within your community.
Thank you so much, first of all. I mean, you know that, but still, you're one of our most valued members as well. You've been part of the accelerator in the very early days. And what we appreciate a lot about you is how you show up for others. And that's not something you take for granted, right? But it's the one thing you wish for the most when you build a program and a community like that, because you showing up and helping out other members has an incredible value for us. It's an entirely different dynamic, and we've seen that time and time again. We've been building programs and educational cohorts for a decade by now, and we know what helps people actually take action. We know what keeps people stuck. And that's also actually one point that I wanted to make earlier. What I forgot is, usually There is no black and white. Anything that you ask about Substack, when it's on the strategy side, right? When you ask where to find a setting or which button to push, yes, there might be a very clear answer. But anything on the strategy side, and I'm seeing this question we have in the chat as well, in terms of when to turn on paid subscriptions, for example. If someone gives you a straight answer on questions like that, and they're like, this is how to do it, it's usually not true, because it depends. It depends on so many different factors, on your situation. How much time do you have? Where do you want to go? What's your ultimate goal? And I think that's the most important thing to know about the Substack Accelerator. We have a lot of resources in there. We have a lot of templates. We've just launched the bestseller track to help you get to bestseller as fast as possible. But at the bottom of it, the most important thing to know is we take a look at what you are doing and what you want to build. And we're able to say, you know what, forget that one video that we uploaded last week. It doesn't apply to your specific scenario for this and that reason. You need to do it differently. And that's incredibly relevant for Substack, because Substack is a very complex platform. You can do so much on here. You have just described how you're using the live streams, for example, to turn them into long form posts. That's one of the things that you can do. You can never go on a live video. Your whole publication can consist only of video. You can have so many different elements embedded. And if you look at the backlog of how many features they have shipped over the last 12 months, I think it averages one per week, maybe even more. It's changing so rapidly that it's hard to keep up with everything that you can do on Substack. And our job is to be here all day long to test those features, to collect data, to have our dummy accounts that are running in the background, so that we can say, hey, you know what, this seems to work well right now. This is a feature that you should pay attention to, or this is a feature that you should probably ignore for now if it doesn't apply to your specific situation. So as basically being the person who has created it, in my opinion, that's the most valuable part of being a member of the Substack Accelerator, besides being in the community and in the sessions with amazing creators like yourself.
I think it's valuable, because even just being in that space of people asking questions, even if they just joined Substack last week, they can answer a question that you would never even thought about for yourself. And I think it's giving context to your own ideas and giving you your own structure in your own way. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the value that you've shared here with us today. I'll make sure that there's in the article below that it's all of the details linking over. I think you do like a free Substack starter kit, so I'll link over to that and find out how everybody can share, how everybody can follow you, and I'm sure lots already are. But I think the takeaway for this session in particular is that it's not necessarily about how the subscribers or the numbers or any of those things like that. It's really how can you grow something here with the sound, and how can you create something that's worth growing for yourself, for you and for others, and for everyone collectively. And so Sinem, thank you for being part of this live series. I'm so grateful for you. Do you have a takeaway that you could leave somebody with there? If there's one thing that somebody could implement today?
Stick to proven patterns. Model what works. Like look at people you admire and try to learn from their best practices, and always run tiny experiments. Look at something that you admire and think to yourself, what could I change about it so that it feels a lot more like me? What's something that you see and you're wondering, why isn't she doing it differently? Why isn't she applying something that seems to make sense in my own head, right? That was my approach in my early days. Once I found out that I need the iteration on top of the consistency, I was all about, okay, this is something that has worked for someone else. How can I even make it even better? Or how can I make it more mine so that this feels more true to me, my voice, my style. Maybe it's an experiment that falls flat and it doesn't work, but it's still worth trying. And as long as they are basically tiny changes, tiny improvements, you don't have much to lose. Just give it a try. Maybe that's the thing that resonates. Maybe that's the thing your audience comments on. And if it's not, it's not. You move on, you do the next thing. You create something that for 90%, it's kind of a proven thing. It's working. You have created something really valuable that people will love. But then you add that tiny spin to it that makes it a little more fun for you, or kind of, tests an idea that you believe is worth experimenting with.
That's amazing. So don't be so hard on yourself. Baby steps and
have fun. Yeah.
Have fun with it. And that's exactly what I'm going to leave it on today. So thank you to everybody that has joined us today. And Sinem, thank you for such value for sharing. And I'll see you on the other side very, very soon. Thank you for joining us today. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.